What is up, ladies and gents, Noah here, and welcome to another Payday 2 video. A video I thought I would never bring you, with what I would say is a pretty ridiculous sounding exclamation. Payday 2 has some OP melee weapons now, and while it is a slight exaggeration to call them overpowered, they are certainly a very viable option now on every single difficulty, with specific, quite niche setups, which is something to rejoice if, like me, you're a fan of bringing a knife to a gunfight. Let's be honest, it's never a great idea, but like I said, just recently, thanks to update 167, it became a much more viable concept. So I'm going to walk you guys through why melee now could be considered an overpowered option in many situations, and that is thanks to this particular perk deck, Sociopath. Now, I'd like to first say that update 167 was very much so needed, and I'm a big fan of balance changes. It shows that Overkill is watching and listening, and it makes a big difference to how the game plays from time to time. It's a real shake-up. We saw some nerfs, but mainly some big buffs to some underperforming perk decks. The thing about Sociopath was it was never a terrible perk deck. It had some good concepts in it. It just wasn't really good enough to hang out with the very best. It always shared the first skill with Infiltrator as well. No Talk was essentially, I'm pretty sure, what Expert Close Combat was. Now, there has been some sort of just standard flat number percentage improvements across the board here in Infiltrator and Sociopath, and some additions to make them both more viable, tankier perk deck options, especially bearing in mind they both have melee as their sort of overarching concept. But alongside that, we've seen some weird changes. Now, Infiltrator has had Overdog moved from all the way back here at the 7th slot to the 1st slot, and they decided for whatever reason to keep Sociopath and Infiltrator with the first perk the same. So no Talk has gone, and we now have Overdog here as well. Now, Overdog was always a cool perk, one that I raved about when Infiltrator was added. It added some damage multipliers to melee for consecutive hits, but overall it was nothing incredible, and it just moved you up to some certain one-shot kill thresholds. Well, not only have we now got it with damage reduction when surrounded by 3 enemies, we also have a pretty ludicrous 10 times multiplier for every consecutive hit after the first, as long as it is consecutive within a 1-second time frame. This is ridiculous. It means the most basic melee attack of 30 is going to hit for 300. Think about that on the lower difficulties where most enemies don't have more than 300 health. This is ridiculous. On the easier difficulties, Overkill through Death Wish, this build, any build I should say, with Sociopath and a melee focus should be extremely powerful. Overkill especially, you're never going to have to pull out or fire a bullet. Just run around knocking people over and killing them. It's as simple as that. It now is one of the best DPS options in the game. And of course it comes with downsides of being next to pretty scary, damaging enemies, and of course not having great ways to deal with things like tasers. But does it matter when you're doing that much damage once you get up close and personal with them? Well, it can do on the harder difficulties, but like I said, on the easier ones, this will melt them and make them honestly quite trivial. It means you never have to aim again. You can just run around, spamming your melee button, and tearing through enemies. Alongside that, Sociopath has seen a few more buffs. I would say Sociopath over Infiltrator is the better perk deck for this, while Infiltrator has a bunch of sort of damage reduction options, which can be extremely useful when it comes to melee, and it also has this life drain skill. It's just too infrequent, and there isn't enough regeneration in the build to make it worthwhile, or the perk deck I should say. So instead we go with Sociopath, bringing in some armor regeneration for our armor builds, as well as some health regeneration, which isn't always useful. In fact, with the setup I use in the gameplay, it isn't particularly useful at all. But also we have Showdown, which has always been a good skill, and at the time it was unique, I believe, when it was added, and that is this ability to spread panic amongst enemies. Let's be honest, if I saw my mate getting stabbed by a toothbrush, I would panic. And so I think it's fair enough. It's also a really strong skill, one that affects enemies on every single difficulty, and one that can come in so handy even on 1 down. So I'm going to move on, show some gameplay to you guys, and just keep chatting about why this is such a fun option and also such a powerful one. So the melee weapon you will see throughout pretty much all this gameplay is the Novice Shank. The melee weapon was added in Hoxton's Breakout, and at the time I said this thing swings so fast it actually has really high DPS. Well, now we're going to times that DPS by 10, meaning this thing is going to swing for, with the melee perks, 600. The first swing will hit for 60, and the second swing will hit for 600. So in 2 swings, you're going to be doing 660 damage to an enemy, which is not bad at all, especially remembering how quickly this thing swings. It is ludicrous DPS. Now, I've not worked out exactly what it is, but it is definitely upwards of 1,000. There are other options, of course. The Shinsakusei Katana was always one of the best melee weapons in the game, if not the best, outside of the stunning weapons like the Buzzer. But this thing is now going to swing for, what, 1,400 a swing, and with fast swing speed. That is so good for the Katana as well. So it's up to you to how you want to run it. I think the Shank, because it gets the multiplier off a bit faster, because of its extremely fast swing speed, is the best with this particular setup, but you guys can run it however you want. So, strangely enough, a sharpened toothbrush is, in my eyes now, the most overpowered melee option you guys have. If you have some other ideas, please let me know. But you will see some gameplay on Nightclub, on 1 down difficulty, and I am successful in completing the heist. I do use my weapons, don't get me wrong. Melee is not overpowered just in that it destroys everyone. It's such a strong option right now because it allows you to run brilliant utility weapons like the Thanatos and the China Puff, which are great for dealing with all sorts of enemies on every single difficulty, because they're great utility weapons, but they have some serious ammo consumption problems. But if you're swinging at enemies with a toothbrush, you're not expending any ammunition. Even bulldozers go down ridiculously fast because they don't get that sort of armor damage reduction they would normally get against the toothbrush. I know it seems odd, but it is effective. You can take bulldozers down even on the hardest difficulty in under 3 seconds, I have found, especially if you can get behind them and prevent them from getting any shots on you. And, of course, if that's not working out for you, you still have a bunch of ammo in your primary and secondary weapon because you're taking out most enemies so easily in 1 or 2 swings. It really is a powerful option. It's a fun playstyle, and it's definitely one I would say is viable for 1 down. I'm not saying it's a world beater. Normally, you're probably better off focusing on your ranged weapons on the harder difficulties, but with certain setups, with Inspire, you can still be a huge asset to the team while having a ton of fun running through the entire enemy squad with Nova Shank. It's a great setup and one I'd love to see you guys trying out. I will go through the build in a future video, and there will be another melee weapon build basically inspired by this fantastic update coming in the not too distant future. I'd like to thank Overkill for making my favourite playstyle so enjoyable and so viable. And guys, I'll hopefully see you all next one. Oh, I did mention that there'll be a 1 down build. Melee weapons was not meant to be the 1 down build that I was bringing you. I do have another one which I will show off, which may well be slightly more viable on all heists. Melee does struggle when it comes to sort of long open sight lines, so unfortunately this is not the world's best 1 down build that I wanted to bring you. This is just a fun video showing off some really cool playstyles that have been added thanks to some changes, and that video will still be coming in the not too distant future. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you all in the next one.